and we need to manually jump the 2 power pins. Still nothing. Wow, this computer is great. So we're going to try the power supply next. This one is a bit easier to swap out than an entire motherboard, if you ask me. I'm going to connect 8 pin UPS, and that's it. That's all we've got. Just 2 connections, the vital connections. We've removed every other variable, and we're going to connect this power supply to the wall, power it on, and let's see if we get power now. I am expecting that we don't, by the way. I'm going into this, I haven't tried this yet, but I don't think this is going to be a power supply problem. It doesn't look like a short, it doesn't power on and turn off. We get steady power at the, at least over the RGB header. So I don't think it's this, I don't think this will fix the issue. Look at there. Nothing. No power still. Wow. These are both connected properly. Yeah. I'm thinking more CPU than motherboard at this point. Maybe he broke a pin installing the CPU. Maybe it's just seated improperly, which is kind of hard to do with AM4, but still, it is possible. So I suppose we'll need to check that out next. So let's remove this CPU cooler. Let's see what we're working with underneath. Again, I don't actually know what CPU this is. It is a, oh, this is a really nasty thermal paste. I really don't like this stuff. It's like almost like a glue. Oh, that is awful. It is a Ryzen 5 2600. This thing actually looks to be in pretty good condition despite its age. It's not very old, relatively speaking, but still, it's not the newest generation, so there is, again, the slight chance that something is wrong with this chip internally, but we have yet to test it. I did check the pins, and the pins look to be fine. I don't see any missing, any bent, and the socket looks good as well. Now, I happen to have a Ryzen 5 2600 that I know works. I'm inclined to swap this one out with the one in his build first to see if this fixes the issue. This would be a bit faster of a troubleshooting step than would be swapping the motherboard out. So yeah, let's get this in there first. Now with my 2600 in the socket, I want to go ahead and try powering things on, but I want to do so with a cooler installed. I don't want to just run this as is, because if this does fix the issue and the system does post now, or at least boot up, that chip will get very hot without a cooler, and I don't want to risk damaging the CPU or the motherboard. So we're going to go ahead and take this chance to install the MSI K360. In the box, we've obviously got the 360mm radiator with the tubes, the all-in-one cooler itself, and we've got 3 120mm RGB fans. Now there are a few really cool traits about the Core Liquid K360. One of the reasons why I'm super excited to upgrade this viewer with this AIO. First off, the block has a built-in LCD, which is customizable. That's really cool. I'm actually going to peel off this plastic layer here. Ooh, oh, so satisfying. And then the other thing is that the block also has a built-in 60mm Torx fan, which means you can get active cooling to the surrounding VRM MOSFETs, things on your motherboard that need to be cooled, and active cooling always helps. So you're really killing 2 birds with 1 stone here. Not only are you cooling the CPU, thanks to the copper cold plate, but you're also getting active cooling around the power delivery aspects of the motherboard. So AIOs that do that, really cool. In my opinion, you don't see too many of them. In fact, even customizing the screen on top as well is really cool. So let's get this thing installed. We'll set up the socket mount. Another cool thing about this AIO is that you can remove this front cover, and you can see what's all going on underneath. So we've got that 60mm Torx fan right underneath the LCD, which is right here. And removing this actually gives you better access to the 4 mounting screws. So this secures the block to the back plate, and now we've got a good solid connection. Alright, so with the AIO installed, we've also got the pump connected. I'm not worried about wiring the fans. We're not going to have the system up for that long. I just wanted some circulation, some way to get heat away from the CPU when it boots up. We're going to connect the system to power again. We've got the 24-pin and the 8-pin EPS ready to go. Let's see if it's the motherboard or the CPU. I'm thinking it's the CPU. I could be wrong. Wow. Oh, forgot. I didn't wire for an ion. Yep, that's my bad. Okay, here we go. Let's try again. There it is. I don't know if you guys can hear that over the lap mic I'm wearing, but that pump is churning. The system is on. Awesome. So my suspicions were correct. He has a dead CPU. So
when design, ability, and performance meet, the results couldn't be better than this. Prepare to meet the new XPS 13, an ultra-thin, light, and powerful laptop. If you want to know the nuts and bolts of it, come watch the full video now.
at this point, we're going to get everything wired up that was originally in this build, again, save the AIO. And we're going to try for a post, we're going to try for picture, make sure everything is good to go before we totally jump on the dead CPU train. Again, pretty good feeling, that's what this is. We're going to reconnect his cable extensions. We're going to reconnect front I/O, which I should have done before inserting the card anyway. And with everything hooked up now, I believe we can try for a post. So power on at the rear. There we go. Nothing will be synced up yet. But we should at least get a picture out, and I'm looking for a post. I think that's possible. I don't think there's any other problem with this build. And there we go. Check it out. Always an awesome feeling seeing a screen like this after a long day of troubleshooting. And this took quite a while, actually, several hours. And I've been kind of cable managing, working things out as we go. In the back of this case, there's still quite a bit I need to do. I haven't secured the right panel yet. But I noticed that the motherboard was sending power to a peripheral, which led me to believe that it wasn't likely the motherboard. And because we were getting power to that peripheral, I also believe that it wasn't the power supply. The only other major component that would have prevented the system from actually powering on to any degree was the CPU. And it's such a rare thing. I've said even in this playlist before, it's very rare that a CPU dies. But when it does, the symptoms should be rather obvious, at least after seeing this video here, and you'll know what to look for. If you're not getting power on at all, but you are getting power to other peripherals, especially through the motherboard itself, might want to start taking aim at the CPU. So with this taken care of, we can power the system off. We'll focus on cable management for this side of things. Then I also want to tackle the 2600, the one that we believe is defective from the system originally. We'll throw that into probably an X470 or X570 motherboard, one that I know will support the 2600 natively, and we'll see if we can get a post with this CPU in that rig. So this is what things look like back here pre-cable management, and this is what it looks like after spending about 20 minutes on it. This is not my best work, but there are so many cables being run in so many different directions, it's difficult to, manage. Now, I'm not sure how well you can see this on camera, but this glass is super freaking dirty. So, I mean, it's real gross. You can tell it hasn't been cleaned in a very long time. We'll clean this up for him. Wow, this is already looking so much better. It's the top and the front panels as well. These are equally as gross. Something about cleaning glass that is just so satisfying. And lastly, we'll finish things off with a quick electric dusting. This build almost qualifies for a deep cleaning in the pt3 playlist, but I was not sent this system to deep clean. I'll just give it a quick little dusting here. The last thing to do in this video then is confirm that our 2600 from the viewer's rig, the original CPU, is in fact dead. If it's not dead, then I'm not sure what was wrong with it. Maybe it was just improperly seated, though it's again pretty difficult to screw that up with AM4 since the CPUs themselves are keyed. But here we go. We're going to power this system on. I've got just a GT710 here for video out since the 2600 doesn't have an integrated graphics processor. And the power pins, those are right here. It turns on. Wow. Maybe I should have just tried reseating a CPU before assuming that it was dead once swapping fixed it. Are we getting a freaking post? I cannot believe this. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Alright, well, improperly seated CPU. I don't know what else it could be. Maybe he just had too much mounting pressure over the CPU cooler. I really don't know what else to, I don't know how else to rule this. I mean, the CPU was seated properly. When I took the CPU cooler off, the chip was where it should have been in the socket, right? Again, it's really difficult to mess that part up. And the only other variable I can think of is that maybe there was just too much mounting pressure atop the CPU from the cooler. That has, in the past, and even in my case, more in X299's case than X570 or B550, but still, I have had it where a CPU just isn't detected properly and the system doesn't turn on because the cooler is just not mounted properly and there's just too much pressure, too little pressure, whatever. This is really catching me off guard. It's kind of why I'm fumbling my words here. Okay, so look, here's my thought process. This board is a B450M from ASRock. It works natively with 2600s, okay? If it was a BIOS issue, my 2600 wouldn't be working right now, and it has, we've confirmed that, so that's why I try to use as close to an exact match the CPU as possible, and I just have to have another 2600 laying around. So mine in there works, it's not a BIOS issue. The wiring, we narrowed it down to just the 8-pin and the 24-pin. No other wiring connected to the motherboard at all. And we tried 2 power supplies and still couldn't get it to post, right? So it's not the power supply, it wasn't wiring, it wasn't user error in that sense. The only other thing that was still installed was the CPU cooler. And of course, in order to get the CPU out, I had to remove the CPU cooler. I didn't think to reapply that CPU cooler onto the same motherboard but my new CPU because I didn't expect mounting pressure to be to blame. I'm actually going to take this a step further now. I'm going to put his CPU back in his motherboard. I don't know what else to say. I really don't know what else to say. I'm kind of confused.
We're cold. No problem. The Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is temperature balancing, so you both stay comfortable. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. Shop now at sleepnumber.com.
So, with his CPU now in this build, power on at the rear. Yep, if you needed any more proof, his CPU is just fine. Well, hasn't this video been one heck of a roller coaster? Really didn't see it turning out this way. I suppose I should be happy that nothing in here was broken. Nothing in here was defective. The CPU was fine. I had growing suspicions that it wasn't, and even concluded at one point in this video that it was actually fried until I went and tested it in another build. And I'm glad I did that because then I quickly realized that the CPU wasn't actually dead. And then we swapped that CPU back into here, and what do you know, it happens to be working just fine. Like I said, I've run through every possible scenario. I even reconnected the original CPU cooler's fan, thinking, well, maybe that fan shorted something out, preventing the system from turning on. That wasn't the case either. We literally only had the 24-pin and 8-pin connected and the CPU cooler connected, and it wouldn't power on. Remove the CPU cooler, replace it with this AIO, and for some reason it now works. That's why I'm thinking mounting pressure, but I can't give you guys a definitive answer, and I'm sorry for that. I feel a bit stupid, I really do. I feel a bit silly in this video. I'm not going to bother cropping any of this out. I'm not trying to paint myself in any better of a light than I deserve to be. The whole point of this series is to reveal the troubleshooting steps that I run through. Hopefully that helps those who might be in similar positions as this viewer was. And, you know, for this to be a learning process overall. I mean, that's the goal. That's why I say thanks for learning with me at the end of virtually every video, with a few exceptions. Again, I'm not trying to make myself look like the hero. I made an assumption. I kind of followed through with that. I was a bit headstrong and a bit premature to assume that the CPU is dead when, in fact, it wasn't. But I don't know. This was just such a strange troubleshooting process. It really didn't end up the way I thought it would. And I'm still kind of confused as to why we saw the symptoms that we did. But nonetheless, the viewer now has a fully functioning build. The build is much cleaner now. It has been cable managed, actually, well, a lot better than it was when it came in, but significantly better than it looked once we connected the 360 AIO here from MSI. And yeah, I think overall, a really balanced build. and a cool red and black and dark gray theme going on. MSI's Core Liquid K360 is a nice addition to this build. Sure, it's a bit overkill for a Ryzen 5 2600. I mean, it's not even a 2600X, just a vanilla 2600. But at the end of the day, this viewer can always migrate this AIO to a newer build, a beefier build, something that consumes a bit more power, outputs a bit more heat, and it would just be right up this 360 AIO's alley. I really dig the integrated screen, the integrated fan, both of which are in this CPU block. It is insane how much they've packed into this block here. And the fans look super sweet as well with their RGB support. You can learn more about it in the link below. And I said that earlier, but it is one you should strongly consider for your next beefy PC build. So hopefully with this video you were at least somewhat entertained. I'm also hoping that you learned a thing or two. But I'm leaving this one feeling, again, a bit silly. I don't really know what else to say. It's a bit embarrassing. I'm kind of stunned that this ended up playing out the way that it did. Look, we fixed it, but it was a pretty messy process along the way, and I'm still not entirely sure what happened. But at least the viewer can go home happy with a clean system, fully functioning, and with a pretty sweet upgrade courtesy of MSI. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. I would appreciate that. Consider clicking the subscribe button if you have not already. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought of this video and what you'd like to see next, and I will catch you in the next one. My name is Greg. Thanks for learning with me.
If you've been sexually assaulted or abused, you are not alone. Confidential help is available 24/7 with the Michigan Sexual Assault Hotline. Call 855-VOICES-4 for help. Learn more at michigan.gov/voices4.
Like I said earlier, if we're not getting picture out even from the 7700K itself, that tells me that it's, again, either the motherboard or the CPU. So I guess at this point, I have really nothing left to try. Let's get this thing out of here. Hi there, Greg from the future again, just one more time. In this clip here, I talk about how I noticed that there was an LED debug indicator on the right side of this Z270 board, and I noticed that when I powered the system on, the top two LEDs would flicker for a split second, the CPU and the DRAM, I believe, and then they would cut right back off. You can see the B-roll here. This is what was happening. It happened so quickly that I didn't notice it even turning on before, which is why I didn't even know it existed, because the lights were on for, fractions of a second. But this prompted me to swap power supplies just to be on the safe side, because I wasn't really sure why we were getting that odd flicker. This could be a short, but it ended up not being one, and I'm kind of glad, because at this point I was already so deep into replacing the platform that I had already kind of committed to removing things. So what I ended up doing was upgrading his entire platform with stuff that's much newer. So we have a 9900KS in this build now, and a Z, I think it's a Z390 motherboard, I don't really remember. It's a Gigabyte Designaire board. So a very beautiful motherboard, beautiful platform. He's got a 9900KS in there now, which is like double the cores, double the threads. He's set. He's good to go. I did reuse his RAM, but that's, DDR4 to DDR4, no problem there. But yeah, this platform is much newer, and I think he's going to be happy with this. At the end of the day, like I said, I knew that it was either the motherboard or the CPU, so replacing both was just this safe play while I was in the process of ordering other components because I didn't have any to test with. So that's what you're going to talk about here in a second. But yeah, so this platform is new for him, and we turn it on, make sure that it works. He's good to go. So I think at this point, I'm going to let him keep these upgrades, and these are definitely upgrades over his previous Intel rig. So from a 7700K to a 9900KS, and he's still going to get overclocking support with a beefier, more modern Z-series motherboard. We'll keep his RAM in there. Actually, we can recycle the CPU cooler since it's the same socket layout, and everything else will be the same. We just need to tackle this, obvious rat's nest down here. Now after powering the system on, making sure that his fans were spinning, making sure the RGB was on, it's not synced up yet because, well, he needs to download the software to do that. I noticed that neither of the drives in his build have boot volumes on them. They're both Samsung SSDs, one of them is larger than the other, but neither has any created volume at all. In fact, these look almost brand new. If you look in the, I have Windows Media Creation Tool pulled up here, just to confirm that no volumes exist, and sure enough, both Drive 0 and Drive 1 have 100% unallocated space. So, like I said, if you bought one of these from Best Buy, this is what you would see. Both of these are like that, so I'm going to ask the viewer what he wants me to do, which drive he wants me to install Windows on, assuming he wants Windows, and then we can push this build to the side, because otherwise it's working again. Mission accomplished. We still have an elephant in the room, though, and that's the platform that we previously removed, the Z270 board and the 7700K. Which of those is bad? I don't have other components from that generation to swap with right now, so we're going to have to go fishing. So it has been a few days since filming that last clip you just saw, and I wanted to take some time to gather not only a Z270 motherboard that had both native Skylake and Kaby Lake support, but also I wanted to have a Kaby Lake CPU, or just even a Skylake CPU, something I could use to run with that Z270 board to swap out with his as well. Now, I've already returned his system, so you're going to see it at the end of the video when I do the outro and stuff. I'll be wearing my old shirt, but I'm filming this scene much later because, again, I had to wait for that hardware to show up. His system is good to go, and that's why I already returned it, because it had those upgrades that I just showed you. But at this point, I still want to narrow down whether it's the motherboard from his old system at fault or its CPU. This here is the motherboard and CPU from the broken system, the one that we started the video off with. You can see this is the Core i7-7700K. I've got a Core i5-6500 here I bought from a gentleman named Ari. I appreciate you, Ari. And the Maximus 9 Hero here, the Z270 motherboard I bought from Shannon. I appreciate you, Shannon. You know who you are. This is a pretty beast board here, and he didn't even want me to pay for it. I just covered shipping for him, so big thanks to him. We've got two components here that we do still need to test, so we want to make sure, especially in shipping with this motherboard, that everything works. Once we confirm that both the CPU and the motherboard work in here, then we want to take this CPU and put it into this viewer's motherboard. If we don't get a post, that means it's the motherboard to blame, and if we do get a post, then it's probably the CPU to blame, and we'll take the 7700K, we'll throw that into this motherboard to confirm that finding, if that is how it plays out. So just to give you a rundown, that's what I'm about to do. Here we go.
What did the teddy bear eat for dinner? Nothing. He was stuck.
Plug HDMI directly into the motherboard because these CPUs have integrated graphics. Everything else is wired up, and yeah, let's give it a go. So this here is with the two that I just bought. I'm just confirming that these work before we start swapping other components around. I have no fan just because the system's not going to be on that long. Using, yep, we got Dr. Debug up here so I can see what it's doing. Yep, there we go. Boot light. All right. So these two components work. That's great. I had no doubt. These two people were really cool, and I appreciate their help in this video. And now for the tricky part. So we're going to put his 7700K into this rig. Now that we've confirmed this motherboard is functional, we're going to see if we get a picture out now. 7700K, it's a Kaby Lake CPU, but it should still have an IGP, and that's why we don't need a discrete graphics card, in case you're wondering. Slide this one on in, nice and carefully, and lock the retention arm again. Are we going to get a post? That is the ultimate question. Now, if I had to wager, if I was a betting man, I'd say the CPU is perfectly fine. Wow. Wow, we've got a Dr. Debug 0 or OA. That is not good. So if I had been a betting man, I'd have lost a lot of money. This Dr. Debug indicator right here is indicating that the CPU is fried. And it doesn't matter which slot I use for this single DIMM. It could be channel A, channel B, slot 1, or slot 2 for either channel. The system still will not post. I think we've just got a totally bricked CPU. And by process of elimination, it means that this viewer's motherboard, assuming the platform itself wasn't totally toast, should be fully functional. And that's what we've got installed now. We're going to power it back on. This board we do have to manually jump. Let's see here. Motherboard does the exact same thing on the debug LED. Wow. You know what? Maybe the motherboard is what killed the CPU. Maybe I just killed my 6500 by putting it in this motherboard. no, it's booted. What? Okay, we've got the, I don't know, something might be wrong with the debug LED thing. I'll show you guys right here. What it does, it kind of flickers for a second and then cuts back out. Well, that's what it was doing with the 7700K as well, except from this point on, it just stayed off. But here, it boots